But the point is, so they get the sovereignty that they want that way. And they don't have to do any more like, you know, like persecuting of Tibetans or anything. And then they declare Tibet an environmental reserve, the entire plateau. And then they get Al Gore's positive vibe. And I want Al Gore to go back and help them set up the environmental preserve and bring in World Wildlife Fund and extra funding from the European Union and make it really, truly a wildlife preserve. And I also want Al Gore to spend time there, because when you spend time at altitude, you lose weight. And it's a very good weight loss program to spend time at high altitude. And I think the Reverend Al needs a little trimming to last a little longer. We need him for the next 20 years. We don't want to have like a, you know, some kind of premature heart attack from having to pump too much blood to too much acreage. Too much belly acreage, you know, from dear Al. And Tibet, well, the weight rolls right off you in Tibet. You can't really eat, you know, you don't have much appetite and you really lose weight. So that's a dream of mine. Tibet as an environmental preserve, preserving Al Gore. And they get tremendous, talk about PR, they get tremendous kudos out of that, the Chinese. They become lauded by everyone, and their whole thing about the filthy coal plants and electric power that one a day goes online, tremendous poor air quality, acid rain falling on Japan, the Hong Kong people never see blue sky, they can't breathe. And this would all go away. And they'd be totally happy. Then they get Taiwan. Because if they make Tibet one country, two systems, no internal colonization, local government of their own, leaving the religious pluralism, free Buddhism, whatever, then Taiwan, what excuse do they have? Then they already invest everywhere in industries all over mainland China, what Taiwan people do, then they won't be afraid, and then they will make a deal with them. And they'll give them one country, three systems. Four systems. Then the Chinese will tell you, oh, if we're nice to Tibet, then the Mongolians and the Uyghurs they'll revolt, it'll be terrible, we'll lose all those areas that we didn't invade, and they're not our colonies, but they would like to be free of us. No, why? They would then want to join too. You let them live in their desert, you let the Inner Mongolians live there, stop polluting and destroying their grasslands with your ugly strip mining and things, and then mine cleanly and greenly, and then the Mongolians will join up, and the Uyghurs will join up. Why not? You let them have their Islam in Uyghuria, you let the Mongolians have their Tibetan Buddhism there in Inner Mongolia, they'll all be very happy. And they really will have the harmony that Hu Jintao talks about. And then the final kicker, and the Tibetans are happy, Dalai Lama's campaigning, you have no idea what will happen. That is why Hu Jintao has to remove the People's Armed Police, and he has to remove the colonists from the Tibetan plateau, not just TAR, Tibet Autonomous Region, all the Tibet Autonomous prefectures and counties as well, which is actually 2/3 of Tibet, where 2/3 of the Tibetans live, and that is not taking away territory from China, that is just unifying the area where the Tibetans reside on their plateau, so that it can all be given to China, actually. If they will let it live in its own way, if they will let it breathe in its own breath, if they will let it pray in its own prayer, and practice the Dharma in its own way. It will all be given to them. And then the last wonderful thing is that the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu and Elie Wiesel and Nelson Mandela and Jimmy Carter and Betty Williams, etc., 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 etc. Henry Kissinger will jump in once they're all doing it. They will nominate Hu Jintao for Nobel Peace Prize. And he can share it with the whole Politburo. Can you see a better way of integrating the dictatorship of the proletariat? Then send them to Norway to drink some schnapps with the King of Norway and the Foreign Ministry, and get a parade, a torchlight parade on December 10th in the middle of the darkness, and Wotan and Thor riding, and the Aurora Borealis is flourishing, and the leadership of China finally has RESPECT from the world. And then, you know, they'll do a few simple, nice things like let North Korea have a break, you know, and it's Kim Il-jong, and we can send him to Harvard or something, or to Esalen for sensitivity training. And And then the Burmese dictators can join him there. And Aung San Suu Kyi can have her country back, and then they can be friendly with China. And Darfur, they can take a break, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and then China takes the leadership. And then Obama will bring America in line. And we'll become popular. And everything we can have a 21st century without this stupid war. So this matters, don't you think? Or do we want to go on paying for war and having nothing, no money, nothing for anything else on this planet for another century? We want our children and grandchildren. There won't be anything left of this planet. Where is Kellogg, Brown and Root going to attack next? Halliburton, where are they going to attack to make money? They're selling lunches to our soldiers, $20 a lunch. Really crappy thing, wrapped in worse than McDonald's. But where are they going to send the troops next? I don't think there's any place left to conquer. But they can have a big pretend war with China and then make a lot of money. But we don't want that, do we? Let's have Kellogg, Brown and Root make some local clinics. Build some hospitals for poor people in Arkansas. Not prisons, concentration camps for immigrants or whatever. Forget about it. Anyway, I should have started here. I meant to read. You're supposed to read the book at a reading. But there's, in the beginning here, I talk about the Buddha. Some of you all who know me will know about it. The Vimalakirti Sutra. There is a short but famous universalist Buddhist scripture called the Teaching of Vimalakirti, in Chinese, the Wei Mo Jing, beloved by the Chinese. That begins with a story about the Buddha. I'm going to tell my own words because I don't want to take this time to read it, but some young seekers come to salute and listen to his teaching. In an offering, they place 500 jeweled parasols in a heap before him. He then performs a magical feat, a piece of performance art, and he forges that heap of jeweled parasols into a giant canopy over the entire assembly, in which they see reflected the entire interconnected natural universe. Like if I was capable, if I was Buddha, in performance art, suddenly you see everywhere all the planets and galaxies, life on other planets, your connection to some crocodiles in the Amazon who are eating like McDonald's wrappers or something and choking on them. You would see everything all interconnected, like the environmentalist dream, the green vision. You'd see that, that's what he showed all of these people. They then ask him, they are astonished and delighted by this display. They declare verses of praise and appreciation. They then ask him a big question. They say, "O Divine Lord Buddha, we 500 are already embarked on the quest to unexcel perfect enlightenment." They already know that the human being is capable of understanding their world fully, and that when they do, they become really happy. And therefore they enter the path of the Dharma, because if you know that real happiness comes from understanding your world, and that you are capable of it, what else would you spend your life doing? Making money? Manufacturing widgets? Like what? Being rich and famous? And dropping dead then? What, would you do that? You think that if you know that you can be really happy if you understand yourself and your world and that you're capable of that? What else would you do? But there is a problem. They say, well, but what we now need to know is, how do we perfect the Buddhaverse? The world that best works for the evolutionary development and enlightened happiness of all beings. In other words, how do we actually transform the world? Because when you're a Buddha, the world changes. You change your whole world. And it becomes like a place that is the perfect evolution, has the perfect evolutionary situation for every being in it, especially the humans who are the ones closest to enlightenment, but all of the animals too. You transform your whole universe like that. I mean, that's the preposterous claim of the Buddhists, of someone like the Dalai Lama, the Mahayana Buddhists.